5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to Kirby Nation, the podcast of the Kirby Wilbur Show. It's Wednesday, so we're talking technology with Tony North, who's with our IT department. Tony, how are you?
Doing great, Kirby. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. Anna Marine, by the way, mentioned that. Also good friends. So
that's right.
We tend to talk about tech stuff on Wednesdays for all of you out there. We've got some great stories today. The first one I'll start with, we have talked in the past about whether Alexa and Siri are listening into you while you're having conversations in your home, and whether Amazon and Google and other people can actually hear what you're saying. Well, we have a case from Mexico where apparently, actually New Mexico, where it was a good thing that Alexa was listening, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Very, very good to see where technology can actually be of benefit. And so from that perspective, we even talked just last week about Alexa, stepping in where maybe we were concerned. This week, we have something totally different and better.
There was a convicted felon. His name is Eduardo Barros. He's 28. He was at his girlfriend's house in New Mexico, and he attacked her after he accused her of cheating on him. And then he said the magic words, Tony, while Alexa was on. He said, "Did you call the sheriff?" And Alexa heard that. What did Alexa do?
She called the sheriff.
She called the sheriff.
It was so wonderful. The convict in this example, Eduardo, by using his own words, Alexis heard that and called the sheriff, and they came.
And they came because they could hear what was going on. Once Alexa made the connection, they could listen in. They arrived on the scene shortly after the call was placed. This guy's a convicted felon. He had a gun with him, which is a violation of the law. And the woman sustained injuries, according to the sheriff's department, but she was not taken to the hospital. And they arrested him for a lot of different reasons. He apparently was upset over a text message that she had received that he assumed was from a man that she was cheating with.
That's right.
So he started to beat her. And in the process of beating her, kicked her while she was on the ground at least 10 times in the face and the stomach, according to the police report. Then he told her he could not believe the cops had been called. He wasn't going to go back to prison because she knew he was a felon.
Right.
And if she had called the police, he'd be going back to prison.
That's right.
And when he said, "Did you call the sheriff?" Alexa called the sheriff.
That's right. And, the sheriff did a pretty good job when they got there. It was done great. It was almost one of those situations where, you were really, really feeling for the girlfriend in this example, being, abused, pushed to the ground, at least 10 times to the face. I mean, there's just a lot of bad things that happen out of the situation. But the good thing is, with the sheriff arriving quickly, identifying he was a convict, being able to really calm the situation down. Matter of fact, he took him to jail based on this, and they kept him in jail without bail. So really a terrible incident, but a great outcome to somebody who was abusive.
Now the sheriff said, quote, "This amazing technology definitely helped save a mother and her child from a very violent situation," and it did. However, I guess you have to look back and say, how many times does an incident like this occur where Alexa, by listening in, can save someone, compared to how many times by Alexa listening in, they overhear things they shouldn't hear, or they get commands they don't understand properly, or if the boyfriend had not said, "Did you call the sheriff?"
Right.
Because the boyfriend was obviously afraid. He was a felon. He was a convicted felon. He was in possession of a firearm.
That's right.
Which means he would face a stiffer sentence. And he mentioned he didn't want to go back to jail. And, of course, he's going back because he was caught with the gun and caught in the act. But it worked in this time. But what about all the times when it's just listening in on you and you're just...
I mean, that's the funny thing about this whole topic, Kirby, especially, 1 week we talk about one thing, and the next week, now we're really using a better example. But, last week we talked about Alexa, cutting in, and so we're going to unplug it.
Right.
And I even heard a story where, Alexa had ordered pizzas from a child who, the command was given And so Alexa ordered these pizza, and at the front door showed up, these 10 pizzas, even though it wasn't supposed to happen. So my thought is, I can forego those type of accidents happening when I know that Alexa could do something like this, save somebody's life.
Well, this has great potential, because if you are in fear of your life, if you have, say, a restraining order, let's say you have a medical condition, if you could set up Alexa to, at the sound of certain words, call 911 or call the sheriff's office or call Medic 1, it could be a lifesaver for a lot of people. And
That's
I don't
right.
know if Alexa's program just, can you yell out, call Medic 1 as you're falling from a heart attack? Would
Right.
Alexa know what to do? Or call 911. Is it set up so that it could act as it did in this case with this woman? If it can do that, then it's an incredibly potential life-saving tool that everyone should have in their house.
That's right.
Unless you're worried about not having a heart attack, not being attacked by a boyfriend, not having need emergency aid immediately, and then wanting everything else listened to. Is there a way to segregate, if you will, the emergency side from the I'm going to hear everything you say side?
Yeah, there is. The great thing, now the benefit here with Alexa, this automation, is that you turn it on, but you connect it up with your computer. And then in your computer, you can set what you want actions to do. Now, it will have a default for 911 for calling the police or an emergency, but you can either change it to go to your local police or go to a national sheriff. You can also set other programs in there. And you know what I think about, Kirby? This is so great.
Yeah.
We talk about when that product came out, must have been 10, 20 years ago, where you clap. Right,
the clapper.
Remember the clapper?
That's right.
Listen, this is the modern day clapper, but using technology to the fullest, where you can pre-program it to do things and literally, from your couch.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, it gives the power of Alexa a great benefit. The downside, as we talked about last week, in my mind this week, listen, this was how technology should be used.
Well, we know there's a certain young woman in New Mexico who's very happy.
That's right.
It worked this way because she's alive today, along with her child, maybe not had Alexa not been set up. So maybe those of you out there with life-threatening situations, medical conditions that might require immediate action or response from like EMTs or 911, those of you who might be in fear for your life, and maybe you should consider having Alexa set up so that on voice command they would generate a response.
Right.
Maybe that's something you all should do.
Absolutely.
Interesting story. Different side of the story, though, right?
Yeah, and I love it that it happened so quickly from after our discussion last week.
Yeah.
That's what we want. We want to know everything.
Right, and we want you to understand technology, good side and bad side of it, as best we can. The second article I want to talk with you about, too, this was an article from a theoretical neuroscientist. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but she apparently works with neuroscience, the brain, and trying to integrate technology in the brain. And her name is Vivian Ming. She has a son who's on the spectrum, a son who has autism, also happens to have diabetes as well. And she talks about turning her son into a cyborg.
That's right.
So what's she talking about when she says that, turning her son into a cyborg?
Well, she really, from her perspective, and in today's world, not just her perspective, we all have something, right? I mean, back in the day, we would call it our sins, right? What do? We drink, we smoke. But today, our things that we have are medical conditions. And in this example, her son not just has autism, but also has diabetes. And in her writing here, she's sharing how she's investigating all the things that could help, her son with diabetes or with autism, and in doing so, being able to kind of build a robot, if you will, not really, but from the standpoint of being able to make sure the son doesn't get any further hurt, the son is protected from things. What she's been able to do is learn about these diseases, and then be able to kind of program some things in the son's mind, so that way the son could still be a normal human being that works, like everybody else. However, to do that, she had to do a lot of work, a lot of learning to get there. But as we found, one of the things I looked up was, remember that movie Rain Man?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman.
This is a perfect example because here, Rain Man, here we are looking eye to eye to each other and being able to talk and go through things. And Rain Man with autism, he's not able to talk very well. He social, as this article discusses, some of the social media tools they don't use like everybody else. And they're really reclusive into themselves. But man, when it comes to numbers and patterns, their brain is being used so much that it really becomes an advantage to other workers. And this is where technology could really benefit.
Yeah, she talks about trying to integrate natural intelligence with artificial intelligence. She talked about hacking her son's insulin pump.
That's right.
And when he was first diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, learning to match his insulin to his life so that at certain times he might need more insulin, the emotion would motivate the pump to produce more insulin or less insulin as the case might be. And then she talked about this CIA plot that she read about where the CIA was trying to devise an artificial intelligence that could determine if you were lying.
Right.
For use in interrogation. And she said that she built a real-time lie detection machine that worked off video, that they could watch a video of your face and have a pretty good chance of guessing, or knowing, I should say, whether you're lying or not, watching for facial muscle movements and how your lip moved, and examined every frame of this film. And so she then starts studying neuroscience, and she's trying to find a way to harness artificial intelligence to improve places where her son's body or mind may not be working to its fullest extent.
Right. And that's really great because, typically when people think about autism or anybody with a disability, there's a compulsive behavior, the obsessive, what they call tics or aggression or sensory. A lot of times, for instance, they need sunglasses because the sun aggravates them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting into an area where instead of feeling that this is a disadvantage, we're getting into an area. This lady is putting it into an area, and I've got a couple of friends who do this with their children as well, where we're learning what we can do to still have people operate normally. I mean, that's right. One of the things that she's talking about is I want my son to have a normal life. And the first thing that people see is, them looking down and not being as aggressive or, being able to talk like most people would be. So it's a disability. And as this lady's talking about in building what she's building, it's enabling her son to have a normal life. And I really think that makes it an advantage as opposed to a disadvantage.
Yeah, she mentions that people on the spectrum have certain unique characteristics. And what she was looking to do is not cure her son's autism, but to harness his ability to perform with the rest of us and still maintain that uniqueness that the autism gave him, that being on the spectrum, those characteristics. She emphasizes that she doesn't want to make everybody the same in the world. She wants people to be individual. They want to have their own abilities, and she doesn't want to change her son. She wants to improve her son so that he can function with the rest of us with the autism, being on the spectrum, at the same time dealing with some of those handicaps and making it so she can function. I think it's a fascinating story. She doesn't really, she's in the process of this.
Right.
So there's no real answer as to we found the solution. But the idea of using technology and AI, artificial intelligence, to harness someone on the spectrum and improve their standing, not curing,
right,
but improving their standing and keeping them the unique people that they are, I thought was pretty incredible. In fact, I think we'll ask Daryl to post a link to this article.
That's great.
Because if you have family or relatives with autism, this might interest you in what this woman, who is a neuroscientist, is working on to harness and improve their lives.
Yeah. In 2011, Laurent Matron, a psychiatrist out of the University of Montreal, actually did an analysis about this very topic. And they came to find that people with autism actually concentrate 20 times more than the average human. And that's why they can, like in Rain Man, they can be great with numbers and identify patterns that, normally you look at and you're like, oh, okay, we got to spend a lot of time with this. So absolutely, this is a great article, but most importantly, gives everyone who potentially has, a disease like this, hope that, hey, I can still live my life. I can get someplace. And what we all want to do, I can be somebody in this world.
That's right. That's right. And not have them in a position where they'll look down on as having a disability, but looking upon them as people with unique abilities, unique talents that can be harnessed to improve everybody's life, especially theirs. And I think that's a great goal. The article is Why I'm Turning My Son into a Cyborg by Vivian Ming. It's in Quartz Magazine. We're going to post it on link to it on our website and Facebook if you want to read it and follow up with it. Let me just say, folks, by the way, that every Wednesday, Tony and I get together to talk about technology. So if you have any questions about IT, AI, Alexa, are they listening, any tinfoil helmet hats, we don't care. If you have questions, want to submit them to Kirby at KVI.com. That's Kirby at KVI.com. And we'll try and find an answer for you or discuss the issue with you on this podcast. Every Wednesday, we talk about tech and AI here on Kirby Nation. Tony, thanks.
Hey, Kirby, thank you.
A lot of fun.
Have a great afternoon and excited about next week.
Me too. We'll see you next week. Well, we'll see you before then, but we'll talk to you next week.
That's great.
All right, you've been listening to Kirby Nation, the podcast of the Kirby Wilbur Show. Check out what we've got at Kirby Wilbur Radio Facebook and also at KVI.com. Also, be sure to check out the podcast page for this and other podcasts we do, along with John Carlson. We do podcasts. Check them out on the podcast page or Stitcher or wherever you listen to podcasts as well. Thanks so much. You have a